Just thinking about a way to start this.
You're listening to Edge Radio TV. The views and opinions expressed in this program are that of the host or guests, and not the Edge Radio Network or its advertisers or affiliates.
So, what age should you be allowed to drive? Is that a constitutional right, driving? Are you allowed to regulate that as the government? If so, what age and time frame is there? There's an argument to be made that maybe kids should be able to start driving earlier for career opportunities. Then there's another argument that we should raise the driving age limit to 21 years old. Let's talk about that. My name is John-Arthur Fiala. This is When Opinions Collide, and I'm joined today by none other than my father, John Fiala, paralegal and thought provocateur. He's got some interesting ideas. So, what do you think about that? Do you think we should raise the driving age limit? You think we should lower it? I think I already know your opinion, but go ahead and expound that.
Those are all very, very good questions. And, to that end, as a jurisprudent, and that just means somebody who has a hobby of studying law, that's all jurisprudence means. That doesn't mean that jurisprudence is anything special or they're endowed with something from their creator, and such. It just means that we've got a hobby and it's law. But to that end, there's some interesting sides to that debate and that argument that are absolutely fascinating. And what's more important is that there's some issues that are legal and lawful that apply regardless of the nobility of some of the arguments that individuals would have. And over the years, some individuals, well-meaning as they may be, like you and I, have with arguments of extremely considerable nobility, may have an active.
Let me break this down to fifth grade level, my level. You're saying some well-intentioned people have made laws.
Yeah, legislators.
Sure.
In different states that may have compromised or infringed on rights that were already protected. And so there's a lot weighing in the balance there that one has to consider, and there are some things that may be immovable that cannot be encroached upon. And to that end, today we'll delve into all of those.
So, just again, let me break that down just so I understand you correctly. What you're saying is that some laws have been written under good intention, but they may or may not actually have standing as far as the Constitution is concerned. There are some rights that are indelible. They're endowed by the Creator, as noted in the Declaration of Independence. Are you intimating that the right to travel or the right to drive on the roads is one of those rights?
Well, that's a very good question, and as you so carefully pointed out, there are rights that predate the legislation, and of that, even the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence is superior to the Constitution. And
wait. Okay, you're using words here that you're going to have to define for those simpletons like me who are not
our
paralegals.
founding fathers.
You're saying superior. The Declaration of Independence. Are you saying that that's a foundational document for the Constitution?
Absolutely.
Okay, so keep going. It's a foundational
Our
Constitution.
founding fathers, at the Second Continental Congress in July 4, 1776, they authored a document called the Declaration of Independence, and in the first paragraph of that, they indicate that we recognize that an individual man is endowed with inalienable rights by his Creator, and in doing so with those exact words, they identified that there's rights that predate anything else that they're about to do or would be litigiously enacted subsequent to that. And then they used the word among these, indicating that the few that they listed are just a few from a larger group. And among these, the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And the Constitution would later come into effect, and it wouldn't actually fully come into effect till the early 1800s. And the original 7 articles were indicated that they wouldn't come into effect to the early 1800s. And then after that, some of the amendments indicate that there was times where they would be implemented.
So let's pull back from here and kind of zoom in on what we're talking about today, or what you were saying here. You're saying that because of this preceding document, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution is founded on that. So you're building a case first that the Constitution is built on the Declaration, and all the laws that came after the Constitution and the Declaration are subsequently founded upon those laws. If there's anything that differentiates from the Constitution or from the Declaration, from the character, tone, tenor, and letter, you're saying that it is null and void, is what I assume you'd be saying. So that brings us to the question at hand. You still haven't answered my question, or at least given me a brief answer before your explanation. What are you saying that this has to do with driver's licenses?
Well, that's a very good question, and sometimes it's better to give the foundation, and they say one picture is worth 1,000 words, and it's better to give a foundation and let the listener make the judgment.
Sure.
But if you want to take an opinion and go ahead and put it in the super collider here, to just throw out a case study here, if you're the judge and I get the dubious honor and privilege of appearing for you before the court, that for no state driver's license, the question I might ask you is, Your Honor, a license is permission to do something that's otherwise illegal, correct? And
the response would be correct.
And then the Bill of Rights, or the Declaration of Independence, identifies certain inalienable rights, and to exercise those, to be able to do that, I'd have to have the right to travel. And under a statute called 18 U.S.C. 242, 18 U.S.C. 242. USC it doesn't stand for University of Southern California, and it is also a United States code. It says to deprive somebody of their civil rights under color of law is a felony, and it's potentially punishable by death. And so you're saying, Your Honor, that if a license is permission to do something that's otherwise illegal, that I can't go to work on Monday or church on Sunday or go shopping on Wednesday night, or if my son cuts his foot on or daughter cut their foot on a glass bottle, that I can't take him to the hospital because I don't have a driver's license. Would that be considered a felony under 18 U.S.C. 242 and a deprivation of civil rights? And that would be the simplest.
So your answer to the original question would be that there is no precedent or no, let me rephrase that, there's no standing for a law regulating individuals to have a driver's license for private transport.
Well,
is that what you're saying?
I would like to say that, and other folks have spoken differently. And
well, what are you saying?
Actually, it's not me. It's the law and the Constitution is making it very clear. There is no legal standing to prevent somebody from driving, and saying that because you don't have this license, you can't go to work on Monday or church on Sunday or go shopping on Wednesday or take a family member to the hospital in an emergency. There is zero standing. If I have to look at it from a jurisprudent point of view, I can only look at it one way, strictly through the law, and I have to start the top down, and there is no standing.
So what about the laws that we've put in place? We've decided because we're a constitutional republic, we've elected individuals to go and represent us in our state and federal legislature bodies, right? And they've come up with the rules of 14, 16, 18 for the age limit to be able to drive. In a moment, we're going to come back and we're going to ask why they don't have the right to change the law on that. But with that said, we are at a break. We'll be back in just a few minutes. This has been When Opinions Collide. I'm your host, John-Arthur Fiala, joined by John Fiala, none other than my father. Look forward to seeing you on the other side.
Are you a small business owner concerned about the downturn in the economy? Top business leaders like Mattress Mac and Warren Buffett will tell you that now is the time to promote your business more than ever. People need your services. Your business needs an edge. Learn about special advertising packages for small businesses right here on Edge Radio. Find out more, give us a call at 281-744-0446. That's 281-744-0446. Edge, because truth still matters.
Aren't you tired of not getting what you want in bed?
Are you ready to spice things up behind those closed doors?
Woo! We're here for you every hump day at 7 p.m.
This is Sex on the Edge with Jen and Hen. I'm Jennifer Reeves.
And I'm Hendrix Scott, and we are professional licensed sex therapists.
So remember to watch us Wednesday at 7 p.m. on Edge Radio TV, just in time for sexy time.
When people stop talking to each other, society is on the edge. Let's bring them back. Edge Radio, because truth still matters.
And we're back. I'm your host, John-Arthur Fiala. This is When Opinions Collide. We've been talking about the Constitution and the constitutional basis for the notion that a driver's license is actually an infringement on one's rights. I've been talking with none other than John Fiala, my father, paralegal and provocateur in thought. And we're also now joined by Oscar Hines, also another thought provocateur.
I love it. Provocateurs always get in trouble, don't they? Don't they, John?
Nothing will admit you in public, than ever. So, with that said, my father was making the case that you don't actually need to have a driver's license, but I was bringing up the counter that our legislative bodies have actually come up with these laws, and what do these laws protect us from, per se? Like, what's the purpose and intent of these?
Gosh, well, I would imagine with a driver's license, the intent is so that that unlicensed driver doesn't kill someone. My level of comfort with someone driving a 3-ton machine is that they know what they're doing. So the question then becomes, is there proper preparation, proper training before someone is certified to operate a motor vehicle, especially under the circumstances of intoxication, all those things? So that, I guess my question really revolves around that, because that to me is what legitimizes the necessity of a driver's license.
So let's bring that question up. How do you, if you say that there's no constitutional foundation or basis for a driver's license, but our legislators are trying to protect us from folks who do not know what they're doing on the road, what's the counter to that from a constitutional standpoint? How do you prevent people from wreaking havoc on the road? The driver's license is there to prevent reckless drivers from being able to continue to drive.
That's a very good point. And your case in point is made very well with the city of Chicago. Originally, in 1893, they back when most vehicles, horseless carriages as they were steam powered, and these things could get away from you, and that steam could build up and kersplooey, and you could do damage that transcended not just what was around your vehicle, but down the block. And so talk about something getting interesting and entertaining very quickly. When the pressure, that funny little gauge gets to the end and bends the pin over, and all of a sudden rivets start leaving, that's
kaboom.
That's a genuine hazard to the public consideration.
Yes.
And so the city of Chicago was the first one in 1893 to ever require a driver's license for anything. It was and it was specifically for steam-powered vehicles. And then the next time we see any legislation coming out is in New Hampshire, in 1903 when in exchange for 10 cents, you could get a driver's license and they mailed it to you.
Oh.
There was no verification of skills or legal understanding. There was nothing. It was a form of taxation. And later on, the city of New York, the state of New York, picked up the same. And then in 1913, the state of California also did, and it was a form of taxation. Now, New York, when they implemented driver's licenses, originally it was not for individuals really per se. It was just for safety. It was all taxation. And by the time we got 33 states on board, it was still all taxation. And then we come back to the state of New York, where they started saying that truck drivers, they're driving something that's not 2,000 or 4,000, and back then the vehicles didn't weigh near what they do now.
Sure.
But we had trucks, tractor trailers that weighed 40, 60, 70,000 pounds. And if one of those got out of control because somebody was not driving properly, in the interest of the public trust and the public safety, they started implementing for truck drivers. But it wasn't really wholly for safety. It was all about taxation back then. And somebody argued out the back door that it was for safety. But what happened was these heavy trucks, this thin asphalt on dirt that was paving those roads, was starting to warp and wrinkle, and they were getting washboardy, and the city and the state was having to do incredible maintenance, and because of the weight of that vehicle. And so to that end, it's still a taxation issue. And later on, to what we find is that certain states began to migrate, saying it's a public safety issue. That
but isn't it?
Everything is a public safety issue. There is nothing that isn't a public safety issue. Everything is. And to that end, it says we establish this Constitution in common law, meaning that it's almost a buyer beware kind of law that establishes it, meaning that if you injure somebody, you're responsible to them. And that since then, a lot of well-meaning individuals and citizens that have wanted to serve their fellow person and do something good for their country have gone as far as instituting efforts to become legislators, and even made it to legislators, and then passed offered and passed laws, and resolutions that later became laws for safety. But originally it was all about taxation.
See, now I get that. I get that in the preliminary stages, the taxation might have been the case. But when you have somebody operating, as you said, a 40,000-pound vehicle, I want to know that they are going to be sober. There's no alcohol involved. That's really important.
Right.
But I want to know that they have the skill set to be able to manage that motor vehicle under emergency circumstances. And it seems to me like legislators are basically protecting us by having those licenses now. And I think every motorist should have a license, because I witnessed something, and this was horrific. This was a real life situation. I was in Indianapolis. I had just gotten off a plane. I rented a car, and I'm driving, and I saw this old man, old, I say as in like 80, 90, as opposed to like us, John.
Careful, I used to call 50s and 60s old men,
Exactly.
And now the pot's calling the kettle black, and I'm trying to figure which one's a pot, which one's a kettle.
Exactly. Well, so I'm gonna say really old guy. No, this guy's in his late 80s maybe. So I mean, I'm talking, And I watched him cut off this 18-wheeler that had those cars that they flattened. There were cars piled up on this 18-wheeler. He cuts them off, and he forces the truck to jackknife. And I'm right in front, and I'm seeing this all happening in my vision. And the truck jackknifes, the chains pop,
And one of the cars, literally the flattened cars, flies right over my head, and I'm skidding to a halt on the middle of the freeway.
As emotional fun meters kind of bending the fun meter pin over here.
Oh my God! Oh yeah, the adrenaline was flowing.
Tectonic emotional shock here.
Yeah, and so when everything finally settled, there was a car on this side and a car on that side, and I was in the middle.
And there's this little scared white boy in the middle.
Yeah. Well, the thing was this.
Who wasn't a white boy a few minutes ago.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, I was checking my shorts for other, but I will say that after it all went down, I turned and I looked at that old man, and he was just like Mr. Magoo. Like, had no concept that he almost caused a pileup that could have killed people. The truck was overturned. There was oil and gas leaking out of the back of the truck. I run over to help the man. He kicks out the window. He's an older guy too, sturdy older guy. Kicks out the window and says, "He cut me off." I said, "I saw it. I saw the whole thing." I said, "But here's my card. I don't live in the city, but if I need to sign an affidavit or something, I will." But my point is that old man should never have been driving. He literally was clueless that he just overturned this 18-wheeler. He was just sitting in his car staring forward and apparently oblivious to the fact that he caused this horrific
Did he have
accident.
a driver's license?
I suspect he did. I didn't stay around and check, but someone like that should have gotten their license revoked a long time ago.
So that brings up a really interesting question. We're saying that some people have violated certain aspects of others' safeties. They have
Correct.
They have broken past. If you're coming from this from a libertarian standpoint,
Yes.
The idea is you can swing a bat around all day long until you come in my radius and that bat hits me.
Right.
That would be the more libertarian side of the argument. This guy has now brought in, we had to duck, and because we ducked, we're now injured.
Yes.
So the question comes, did the driver's license prevent that, or is there something else that we need to put in play? Is there another metric? Because people like that cause accidents every day, and a lot of them are back out on the street driving again the next day. They never get their license pulled.
Yeah.
And the reason why is there's understanding you can't pull a license.
There's a case story that I share with people that is, I use it as a joke, but it's not a joke. It's actually from real case study. This elderly lady gets pulled over and says, at a scene of an accident, she says, he says, "Ma'am, give me your," it's just a minor fender bender, but I see your driver's license and your insurance. This is in California. And he goes, "Well, I don't have a driver's license." "What do you mean you don't?" "Well, my doctor at my last physical asked me to see my driver's license, and I showed it to him, and he took it from me. He says, 'You don't need this anymore.'"
Okay. Yeah.
So,
wow.
We'll talk about that more in just a moment. I'm getting the high sign from Mr. Producer over here. We'll go ahead and be back in just a moment after this quick word from our sponsors. Thank you for joining us. This has been When Opinions Collide.
We work our whole lives to support our families. With one accident or illness, it can all be gone in an instant. Now there's a smart, affordable way to protect your family. Go to findhealthbenefits.com and discover low-cost life insurance for as little as $2 per month. Add to that a tax-deferred annuity that can help you protect your assets and grow your money for retirement. Learn more. Go to findhealthbenefits.com or call 877-235-6094. A critical illness can strike without warning and wipe out your life savings. In fact, it's the #1 reason for bankruptcy. Find Health Benefits offers an affordable solution. Get up to $50,000 if you get cancer, stroke, or a heart attack, giving you the peace of mind to focus on getting better while the plan helps you to pay your bills and medical expenses. Learn more. Go to findhealthbenefits.com or call 877-235-6094. 66% of seniors spend more time shopping for cable TV than Medicare plans. Most say because it's just too confusing. Laws change every year. The wrong plan could cost you thousands and prevent you from seeing the doctors you want. Introducing FineHealthBenefits.com. Save time, save money, see specialists without referrals. Go to FineHealthBenefits.com or call 877-235-6094 for this informative brochure.
Society is on the edge. Let's bring them back. Edge Radio, because truth still matters.
And we're back. So, again, I'm your host, John-Arthur Fiala. I've been joined by Oscar Hines and none other than John Fiala. Yes. And we were just talking about the lady who didn't need a driver's license because she was too old. Do individuals who are at a certain age or a certain lack of capacity, does having a license prevent them from being on the road in such a way that they don't create the pileup we were talking about before the break? We were just leaving off with a little story and a joke. What in this idea that this notion that the constitutional right to drive, or right to travel rather, how do we protect against, say, elderly or say very young, if you have an 8-year-old? What keeps that from occurring?
Gosh, well, I think, like in the situation I mentioned with this older man that caused this pileup with this 18-wheeler, I think seniors at some point, maybe it could be after 65. I don't think that's necessarily arbitrary age, maybe 70, but that they test once a year. They go through a driving test, just like a kid starting out at the beginning. Why? Because I want to know your reflexes, your eyesight, your hearing, the things that are necessary. I'm a motorcycle rider. And, people think motorcycle riders are nuts. I get it. But there's a certain genuine pleasure in motorcycle riding. And
Does that make me nuts also?
That makes you nuts.
Rider?
You are nuts like I am.
You've always been
I love it. But you know what? We know the freedom and the beauty and the expression of having a powerful bike under us. But we also know that there are people that are driving out there that are completely unawares, that literally can take our lives because they're just not paying attention. I see a little sign that says, "Look twice, there's a life depending on it." I love that because it brings it to your consciousness. And I'm very respectful of riders. I listen. My bike makes a lot of noise, so usually you can hear it. But let's say somebody's got a hearing issue. Let's say they can't.
Huh?
Let's say, what'd you say?
Huh?
Let's say that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
We should know that, because if I blow my horn or if my motorcycle is roaring and they just can't hear it because they're hard of hearing, they can still take my life. They therefore really should not be driving at that point, because they pose a risk to the public. Just like somebody who's abusing alcohol. If somebody drinks and their impairment causes some accident, or even if it doesn't cause an accident, they can have their privilege of driving restricted or eliminated as a result of this negligence that they show. And I really feel like that could save lives.
And I think that's constitutional, what you're saying. If you have a judgment levied against you because you have acted improperly,
Yes.
there's an argument for that from a
Sure.
constitutional standpoint.
Yeah.
But in the constitutional standpoint, what prevents individuals who are incapable, or what would discourage individuals who are incapable from driving well, from being allowed to drive, or being allowed to put other people at risk?
That's a good question. Like we were discussing at the break, when my adopted grandmother was 94, she was still driving daily, and she was still a current certificated commercial pilot for the FAA, and she still flew regularly. So age may not be the
The only
demographic
criteria.
criterion for
Right,
that. But as John Arthur was pointing out, there's a mechanism by with which if somebody does something that, shall we say, colors outside the lines, they were in an event where their motor skills were clearly demonstrated, even though it may have only been a fender bender, or they may have only just traded paint with somebody in the parking lot. There needs to be a mechanism by with which that individual can appeal to the local court and say, hey, look, I saw this happen. This happened to me. This person did not demonstrate good reactive time skills. They were staring at me and they still plowed into me. And then after they hit me and I spun around, 3 miles down the street, I saw the brake lights come on. It's like, the lights never actually really came on. But because if you stop and think about it, whether they have a driver's license or not, those individuals are still on the road, and there has to be a mechanism, whether they have one or not. If they're unsafe, as John Arthur pointed out, there has to be a mechanism there to do that. Now, when I was 11, I worked on the farm, and you want to talk about back in the 50s and 60s, when the TV productions used to turn off at the end of the evening, and they'd put either the
test pattern,
the test pattern with the Indian, beep.
That's right.
What are you doing, man? Oh wow, watching a really boring movie about Indians.
That's
beep,
right. Just watching that test pattern.
Or they would play the B horror movies.
Right.
Well, you want material for a B horror movie? Picture an 11-year-old in a white cab over Kenworth with a pulling triple 48 grain trailers, and back then the maximum set was 70,000 per set. 22.7 miles from the farm to the elevator on the interstate. Now, the farm to market or hardship license back then was 11, and it went to 14.
11 years old, you could drive?
Driving triple 48 grain trailers with 120,000 pounds of grain.
That's nuts. At 11 years old.
My father...
They can do that.
My father...
That's nuts.
Made sure that all of us could drive the family vehicle before we were 8. And so, and we had a 12-passenger Ford van, and he made certain. And by our 10th birthday, there was a handful of things, and we had to go out when we were out in the desert in California. We went out to the desert and we drove around, and he made sure that all of us could, in case something happened to him while we were on that camp out. Yeah. And I was the oldest of 10, and so by the time I was 8, I could drive that family vehicle.
That's amazing.
And when I was 10. And during the summers and during the spring breaks and stuff, when I worked on the farm, it was not uncommon for 11, 12, 13-year-olds or 14-year-olds to be pushing semis, and sometimes, back then they say it's supposed to only weigh in at 70,000. Well, there was one time where the lowest trailer weighed in at 132 because it was wet. Gosh. There's 500,000 pounds in those 3 trailers in that tractor. So that's not a semi. That's a freight train on rubber.
A freight train.
So with that said, I think we've established an interesting thought here with anecdotes, and I'd like to pull more towards the idea section, because we've shown that 8 and 11-year-olds can drive. We've also shown that 68-year-olds
or 94-year-olds
can have a hard time driving, where we have 94-year-olds who can. So the license doesn't necessarily dictate that measurement, and at the moment we have a lot of people who are the biggest cause of death on the road, I believe, period, is substance abuse. And if you look at actual statistics and data on the countries who have different laws, if there was a country that had almost 0 substance abuse deaths on the road, would we want to look at their laws and at least consider them, see if they're compatible? I forget which nation is one of the northern European countries. I want to say Sweden, but don't quote me. They have a near 0% DUI, and yet they're one of the party countries of the northern Europe. What do they have though? Zero tolerance policy. So if we had a zero tolerance policy in the United States, a one and you're done, and whether it's a license revocation or it's a restraining order against you being on the road as the driver, which would be, I believe the libertarian argument would be a restraining order. against an individual driving. If you have a judge who puts that on there, that can be appealed, by the way. But if it makes sense, and if the jury says, well, you plowed into a school bus and killed 3 kids, you're never getting out. Now, of course, I think that should have a higher than a one and done.
Yeah.
But that would be a
one and done
better
seems harsh to me. It just seems harsh.
How many times
because
do you want someone drunk?
Well, not so much, because if you're at a party and something happened like that, it could end your entire existence in terms of your ability to make a living.
So, you're correct. But you look at those countries that have those laws employed, they don't have those DUIs. They always have a designated driver.
Sure.
And that's the name of the flavor. And I'm a big believer in as someone who doesn't drink in public. Okay, but I'll drink in private.
Yeah.
Big believer in designated drivers.
Yeah.
But I'm getting the high sign from our producer. We'll be back after just a moment, and I want you to go ahead and talk about that a little bit more.
Sure.
On the other side of the break. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Edge Radio TV is holding auditions for new show hosts. Are you a subject matter expert, professional, influencer, book author, thought leader, or business owner with an educational or motivational platform? Then we want to meet you. Send a link of some of your work to edgeradio20@gmail.com and be sure to put audition in the subject line. Join the Edge Radio TV family. Edge TV, because truth still matters.
And we're back. Thank you once again for joining us. This is When Opinions Collide, and I'm joined by Oscar Hines and John Fiala, my father. I'm your host, John-Arthur Fiala. We switched seats around here a little bit so I could see Mr. Producer better. Yeah. But with that said, I was having to look over my shoulder and find Vincent. So thank you for that. With that said, we were talking about zero tolerance policies for driving as opposed to what we have now, where someone has, I believe it's a 3-strike rule.
Right.
And so, Mr. Hines, you were saying that you feel like a zero tolerance policy is too strict.
It can be. I think you need to look at it in context and see who you're dealing with. You know, I remember distinctly one time I had a meeting with a young lady. We meet at a place and we have a drink. Well, we're having a drink, we're talking, and she goes, oh, well, we have a little more time. I'm not feeling inebriated at all. And so I have another drink. Now, it wasn't a beer. It was like a gin and tonic, I think. But by the bottom of that second drink, I went, I've got to go. Oh, no, because I got the phone call I was waiting for that I've got to leave. I thought I had more time. And all of a sudden now, I've got to go. And I'm like, whew, I feel a little woozy
Kind
now.
of wobbly.
I feel
huh?
a little, well, you know, it's a weird thing with me. I mean, I'm pretty much in control of my physiology most of the time. So I didn't feel like
I'm always in control.
Yeah.
Even when I'm not in
Even
control.
when you're not
I'm
in
always
control. Well, I didn't feel like I couldn't drive. I didn't feel impaired like I couldn't drive.
Impaired
but I
people
remember, well, that's true, but it's a judgment call. Because if I feel to some degree that I can't, I'm not getting on the road. You know, I just bought it at that time. I just bought a new BMW, and that thing was quick. And I remembered the minute that I got on the freeway, I said, "Up, let me get over this lane." Zzz, and I hit the gas, and boom, red and blue lights are behind me, and I'm going, damn. And I know that I'm a little inebriated. So I take a nice deep breath, wait for the officer to come. I said, "Good evening, officer. And may I ask why you stopped me? I was just entering the freeway." And, you know, I did it in my best radio voice. Right? The guy looks at me and he goes, "Well, you know, actually, you didn't use your blinker." I said, "Sir, you're correct. I did not. My apologies." He said, "License and proof of insurance."
Yeah.
I hand it to him. And he says, "Well, I'm going to have to write you a summons for this." I said, I understand. I didn't use my blinker. And I tried to remain as calm as possible under those circumstances and not say, "You know, I've been drinking." No. You know how sometimes when you have one of those moments where you're out of your head. And I said, nope, not going to say that. And the guy comes back after he writes the ticket, and I'm like, "Okay, just let me go, buddy." And he hands me, he says, "You know, you're one of the nicest guys I stopped this evening." And I almost said, "Yeah, because I've had a couple."
Excellent.
No, I thought it. I didn't say
it.
But I do think, and I know that's a little bit of an offbeat thing, but I'm a guy that does not drive intoxicated. I can be that designated driver if I need to. I say if I need to. I generally will have a drink, but no more than 2 ever for me. But I think if you just have a zero tolerance, you have to acculturate.
I agree, 100%.
To have that.
And it has to
Americans are not acculturated like that. They drink
agree.
right behind the wheel, and they don't give a damn, and they ain't gonna give a damn.
And that's exactly it. We have this culture where it's okay to drink and drive because you still have 2 strikes. It's one of those things where if the law is set up, and don't get me wrong, there's room, but especially after an accident has been caused. I'm not a really big fan of no-cause pullovers. Okay, you have to actually. I'm not a fan of speeding laws. Reckless endangerment, however, is an interesting standard, one that needs to be created. But if I were to put a point on it, a finer point, I try not to do this too often, but if I were to put a fine point on it, I would say, if you have a law in place that makes it possible to prosecute individuals, see, you didn't hurt anyone. Mm-hmm. Is my thought.
Yeah.
If you cause an accident, and that's where I think the O2 meter comes in only after, or the breathalyzer comes in only at that point where you have caused an accident, and now you are culpable for intent because you got behind the wheel knowing that you were inebriated, you didn't control yourself, and you hit someone. That would be where I would imagine the finer line would be. And it's a matter of culture.
Yeah. Americans are not acculturated that way. As a matter of fact, and John, you and I can testify that before we wore seatbelts, it didn't matter that you drank and drive. I mean, you literally would be right in front of a cop drinking, and they didn't care as long as you didn't hurt anybody. Where that changed was in the 70s. Yep. They had Mothers Against Drunk Driving, MAD.
Yep. MAD.
And once MAD started, it ushered in this era of now I'm not advocating drinking and driving, and I hope no one misconstrues that, because it's horrible, especially if someone loses, a family member. But I saw a little blurb on Facebook or Instagram, and it showed police officers hiding behind obstacles with their radar.
Yeah.
And it says, and it had a simple caption that says, anytime the motto is to serve and protect, but they hide from you, that's a problem.
No, we pay them to be out there and visible with that patrol car,
not
with that
hiding
the logo in the presence of the people, so everybody sees that they're there.
Yeah.
If they're hiding somewhere, the presence we're paying for, they're not doing that.
And that brings the question up: are we incentivizing police to criminalize
Absolutely.
individuals?
Yeah.
And that's my issue.
That's
thing. My issue with speed limits. That's my issue with DUI laws. I don't have a problem with someone drinking and driving if they hold it under control. But why did MAD come up?
Yeah.
Because they saw no resolution for their challenge.
Yeah.
They saw no remedy, and it sounds a lot like some of the other things that we can talk about. Police brutality was something that we've have been in the mix before. Black Lives Matter was a codified movement,
right?
But
I get that you can piss a cop off. See, the thing was, and that this, I don't know. I won't
get
be
over this shyness, bashfulness.
Well, I won't be.
Yourself.
So last. Let me just tell you. Well, no, let me just say this, because I could have been screwed, blued, and tattooed just last week. I was with a friend. I was driving a $200,000 M6 BMW. This thing was laid out. And when I tell you, it was so fast. It's designed to go really fast. Mm-hmm. So I was on some back freeway coming back from Kemah. There's some nice road out there. And I stomped that thing up to about 110. You could not feel it. I was ready to take it to 130. The person that was with me said, "Don't do that."
Why did you cheat both headlights on bright?
I wanted to. I actually really wanted to take the 150, but I wouldn't have gone that fast. I definitely wanted to take it to 130. And 130 is important because I've taken cars up to about 125, right in there. And a car like that, you didn't even feel it. You did not feel 100 miles an hour. So I'm saying that partially to brag because we're guys here, but more specifically to say I was not drunk, I was not impaired. My reflexes are lightning quick because I've been riding motorcycles for a long time.
And if you don't believe me, just ask me.
Just ask me, damn it.
Right,
no,
right.
But I, yeah, just ask me. I'm impaired. No,
just ask me.
No, but I'm saying I was just enjoying the motor vehicle at that point, right? So if that cop stopped me, and that was what my friend said. She said, they'll take you right to jail over 100 miles an hour. I said, yeah. I said, I get it. So I'll slow down. But that being said, there are some, and I hate to say it, but there are some really good drivers out there that have some really cool cars. And I watch them maneuver. These are like Mario Andretti types. Those guys aren't hitting anything or anyone.
And so, and that brings me, just to wrap it up, we've got about a minute left here. My question is to John. What would be a useful remedy or replacement for the driver's license?
Oscar made a good point. Our society is not doesn't address certain things, and culture. We have a different culture. If the society went back to the common law culture, where if somebody injures you or you injure me, that we go complain, and then the judge says, wait a minute, regardless of what age, whether it's 15 or 50, that if we color outside the lines and we've done something wrong, and we've demonstrated incapacity to either manage with our dexterity and our skills, or to control our drinking, that judge puts an injunction, either temporary or permanent, on us, and that the punishment fits the crime, and that the driver's license, that we've already demonstrated, whether they have it or not, they're still coloring outside the lines. It's still a means of taxation. But the
so to wrap it up into a bow, if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is personal responsibility, the ability of an injured party to sue, and the government, instead of controlling the individual, punishing bad behavior, such that that person is now restrained from causing the same offense again. And whether it's a very young or very old person, it's not a matter of their capacities that's limiting them. It is, or sorry, a matter of their age limiting them. It's a matter of their actions or incapacities, which would put it to the effect of, instead of having a driver's license, you would have people signing affidavits like driving schools, that so-and-so passed this driving school, and that would be brought up in the court case to preserve or save you from a bad judgment, or at least use as evidence in your favor. Instead of a driver's license, you would be more dependent on education, because I've looked at driver's tests. Yeah. They don't do much of anything, as opposed to going to a driver's school where that school's reputation is on the line. If you have a crash, that's a private individual, or a private individual organization, and not a government mandated. So it would be incentivized to do the best job it could.
And especially when there's an incident, if it's prosecuted quickly and publicly.
When justice is slow, evil
Sin
increases.
Evil abounds.
Yes,
Evil
that's
abounds.
what you're saying over the break. With that said, hope you guys have enjoyed this conversation. It's kind of been all over the place, but it's been a lot of fun. It's been a fun one. With that said, John Fiala, is there somewhere someone can reach you if they want to reach out to you?
Just write me at Edge Radio. It'll be up on the screen after a little bit there.
All right.
If you have any questions, it'd be my honor and privilege to follow up.
And Mr. Hines, anywhere people can reach you?
Sure. OscarHines.com. Just
All
go
right.
to OscarHines.com. That's where you find all my stuff, guys.
And tweet us at Opinions Collide on the Twitter for who should our next guest be. Let us know. With that said, thank you for joining us. I'm your host, John-Arthur Fiala. This has been When Opinions Collide. Signing off for now.